Welcome everybody to the next Nix Hour. As always, we have Matrix channel, we have a meeting. If you have any questions, please join the meeting. We also take questions in advance, although this time again, we have someone in the meeting having a question. And that is then, I'm just gonna briefly repeat the question here. So there's a problem apparently with npmlock2nix where you can't override derivations, or there's a build phase of a derivation created with it. And so I guess the question is just kind of what is going on there. Dan is currently trying to come up with an example of the failure. But until then, I think we can just take a look at npmlock2nix. I've taken a look at this before. I used it myself as well briefly. It is one of the many ways to do node packaging. And I believe it does have, API documentation, which is nice. So there's three main functions: npmlock2nix.shell, if you just need a shell, node modules, if you just needed node modules folder, but I believe that's, so you can npm install in a pure environment. Okay, and then npm and the build one, if you want to build the entire thing inside of Nix. So I hope there are some examples we can use here. See tests v1. Oh, there's even multiple versions of the test interface. Okay. And let's see, how about take a look at the build here. Build, and then it has an example project in here, install phase, only tests evaluation here. I believe there is also integration tests somewhere. Oh, integration tests here. Default.nix. Okay, make integration test. It has a shell here. Shell. Also shell. These seem to be only shells. In any case, let's clone the project. So I'm going to go to, let's go Nix Hour here. Let me clone this one in here. And then the usage examples, it should also show you how you could get it. Here it shows it with niv. Yeah, actually that might be a better way to do it. So let's try that. So also this is kind of just a general way how to initialize a new project in Nix. So let's do, this is Nix Hour number 27, I believe. So I'm gonna do git init. I want to use niv. By default, niv isn't installed, at least here. So I'm gonna do nix shell -pniv. Can also use Nix. Let's try to use. I usually don't do this, but I don't use flakes generally. But let's try using Nix space shell here. I guess that will fetch the latest one, and I don't have a my flake registry isn't pinned anyway. So honestly, this just takes longer. Let me do this. So here it says niv add. I'm going to do that. Could not read, blah, blah, blah. You may need to run niv init. Good to know. All right, I believe by default niv adds, it doesn't do that anymore. It added niv itself as an input in the past. For now, it just does Nix packages. And seemingly the homepage is a bit weird, but the branch is Nixos unstable. I don't really care about Nixos unstable, so I'm just going to switch this to, actually, what is the interface again? Update. Update Nix packages. I want to point to the Nix packages unstable branch. All right. By the way, do you have an example already?
I have parts of it. And I think the other half might require looking at source code.
Nice.
So I was
you can send it any.
Sorry?
You can send it anywhere.
Okay, I'll just put it in chat. So I was using those two commands. I had npmlock2nix as an input to my flake, and what I was doing was trying to override the build phase of the shell, but that is dependent on. But that's the build phase of the node modules that's exposed. So I did that, which did succeed. Like if I check the build phase output of that derivation, it is empty.
We'll have to copy this into here.
Okay.
So you did this. Let me try to reformat this a bit. Okay, node modules, override address, final pref, build phase. Let me do like a very rough one here. Okay, so npmlock2nix v2 node modules, and then source, and then override address on that. Okay. All right, so here it overrode not the right thing.
So that does work. So if you check the build phase for astro-nm, it is empty. But the problem is that I need to inject that back into the shell that comes from npmlock2nix.v2. they expose node modules as a pass through, but I wasn't certain how to get it back into the shell directly.
Okay, I'll try to get to that. Let me briefly create the starting project here. So we have Nix packages. We need npmlock2nix, so now we can add it. Boom. All right, now I've created the Nix directory here with sources.json. Now let's use stable Nix here. That's what I'm most familiar with. I'm gonna introduce npmlock2nix as a variable in here, import nix sources.nix. I believe it's like this. Now we can try npmlock node modules. Do you also have a local folder that has a node project? So right now I'd have to initialize one myself. So I guess we would build it like this. Okay. And if we wanted a local folder, I guess this would be, you would want node.js. Actually, let me create shell.nix here. So what I usually like to do is in the default.nix, just expose. So this is the kind of best way, in my opinion, to have a shell.nix that uses the same variables as the default.nix. So the shell here is going to be we want Nix packages. So we need import Nix packages. So packages comes from actually sources.nix. Nix packages is then sources.nix packages, but I can just do it here, sources.nix packages. I'm gonna make this pure. And system for Flake compatibility and pure evaluation mode. I'm going to make it customizable up here. Then inherit it down here. Okay, and then npmlock2nix. Actually, this is not right here. I need to do sources. Actually, we should be able to look here. So sources. Oh, it's an overlay for Nix packages, or at least that's how it's done here. Right, yeah, we can do that too. Not sure why npmlock2nix is recommending itself to be put in as an overlay. I don't think that would be needed. It doesn't really have any effect.
It isn't necessary. It just makes it. I've used it without doing it as an overlay, and it works fine.
Yeah. Okay. And I see you sent the links there. So we have this one. Oh, copy. Oh, this is not right. Okay, let me do it like this. This one. Okay, that's a package.json. And this one. Okay, and so this package.json is the, well, name extraterrestrial escape. All right. So let's try if that works. Let's finish the shell later.
Just a word of warning. I did just pull that because I know it's a working package, but it does take a significant amount of time to build.
Okay.
But just so it runs. I was more interested in just looking at what.
Yeah, let's maybe run this in the background then.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this num-build instead of Nix build for the nice output progress. And we should then also be able to see how many things it has to build using that. And so, okay, yep. Yeah, that's a few things. Now Nix packages, I think it should have most things cached, so it shouldn't have to rebuild any core things. And that seems to be the case. Okay, so meanwhile, let's look at the node to Nix and see what the Nix code, well, npmlock2nix and see what the Nix code is like to figure out why it wouldn't work. So, well, let's dig in from the top. So what the README here says is to import the source itself, which then means it's going to import the default.nix package. So if you go into the default.nix, we can see the result it returns is, this is a bit long. Can I do line rep? Is that no rep? Is that no rep? So we have a v1, we have a v2. In this case, we used which one? Oh, this seems to be already done, in fact. But we used v2 and node modules. So v2, you're using v2 beta API, okay. Set rep. Okay, and it links back to the v2 up here, separate public and internal. Okay, v2 internal, and it looks like this. Well, I'm not entirely sure what this is. But node modules comes from here, and the v2 is defined here. Let's just go into here. So then node modules is defined like this. I just did a grep for node modules equals. And then we can see the implementation and the API here. And we can see we have some pre-build, some post-build here. In the end, it returns a make derivation. It looks fairly standard. It doesn't do any weird phases thing. And pass through clean args. Okay. So the thing you're doing here with the override address will override derivation attributes. And specifically here, the unused final pref here, that's a relatively new feature, in fact. But the build phase, so you would override this one. And so here, this works. So you set the build phase to empty. I'm not sure why you would do that, to be honest, because then it doesn't do anything.
It's not useful in that state, but we were trying to just get it changed so we could change the build phase. But
yeah.
Empty that I know it's working.
Okay, and so you want to have this prop be also used in the shell here. Like if you call node, instead of node modules shell, or something else? Like, how is your shell defined, I guess is the question.
Right. So it is similar to node modules, but you just replace it with shell.
Like this.
Yes.
And you're saying that this...
So I was going to say there's a node modules attrs in there, the parameter. Did you try that?
Oh, the node modules attrs.
Yeah, so the shell function takes that. And I think it just calls node modules to generate that derivation, and then it uses it to get like the bins and stuff from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I believe that should even be in the API docs up here. Let's look at them here. All right, so you have node modules. Okay, and that is the whole parsing of stuff, and here's all the arguments and so on. But the shell creates an environment with the node modules folder. Let me increase the font size a bit. Creates an environment with node modules. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then as determined by mode. Okay, and right. Node modules attrs overrides that will be passed to the node modules function. All right, so that should be it, right? Thanks for mentioning that. So in here, oh, right. But we don't really have the, yeah, so that we can customize the result of the node modules here by passing custom arguments, but the supported arguments don't include any such specific override. Well, actually, there was a post build there, but I guess we want to override the entire build phase, not just add something post. And that doesn't seem to be supported here, which is nope. Right, so while we could do something like this, where we say node modules attrs, is it that? Args. Attrs, okay, it's attrs. Equals this. So this is how you can pass source, but we can't really do anything like build phase here. And so, yeah, but this is right. Now we just need to figure out how to dig into the node modules inside of the resulting shell to figure out how to override that. And
also, your shell is going to need a source directory as well. It is a required argument for shell.
I see. Oh, and I guess that would propagate to the node modules attrs.
Yes, I believe so.
I see. Okay, yeah, that seems to make sense. All right, so I guess that's not needed. But let's dig into here. So how does shell work? Shell returns a mkShell. And how does it get the node modules? nm seems to be the thing here. So node modules passes all of these arguments. Now what, if we were to be able to change this code in here, we would want this to happen. Override attrs. Can't really do that though. But it is exposed, at least as a variable here. This will not work super well though. Okay, so we can, so here's the problem with this. BuildInputs is a list. And so we can override the mkShell up here. So we can do this. Well, the override address here overrides the mkShell. Let's go here. Set no. Oh, it's fine. It overrides the build shell here. And so we could do buildInputs equals our custom node modules. So here we could do it like this and say that we want to get the shell. Actually, this is available as a pass-through here, which is nice. So we should be able to do final. That comes from the override address here. So that's the final value of the resulting derivation here. Final dot pass through. Well, pass through is kind of implicit. We can just access node modules directly. And then do the override here. So we could do override attributes. Then we can also use final pref here. I'm going to use the alternate style here of just this. And build, what is it, build phase equals empty. All right. But this might cause problems because we can't really override the previous node modules in here, because now we just add another node modules. And actually we're overriding the entire thing. So we should fix this using pref.buildInputs and then append. So I wonder what's going to happen here. Let's try it out. So this will be a shell, and then actually Nix shell will just work here. Let's go into 27. So Nix shell uses shell.nix by default, but falls back to default.nix. Okay, node modules is missing, so we do not have it in here. Right, that's... So I think that's such a new feature that... Well, actually, I believe node modules would have to be defined in a specific style, which isn't supported right now. So let's get around this by doing a shell here first. So we're going to first assign the shell itself. We'll place this here, shell. Then override attributes instead of the final pref. Well, we can't use final here, but final points, if the right style would be used, final points to the same thing as shell up here. So we can just do shell.node modules instead. All right. Now let's try Nix shell again. And that fetches something. It probably, yeah, building node modules. Yeah, I think it's taking a lot of time in the building phase here. So yeah, we don't want that. So the build phase wasn't overwritten properly. We could also mark this with an exit 1 and echo build phase successfully changed, exclamation point. All right, now we should see that it actually didn't work. Oh, no, it did work. Okay, fair enough, but we actually have two that we're including. And I believe one of them will now have the original build phase and the other one won't. And so there's how to get around this. Let me think for a second. So you could filter out the previous one from the build inputs here. That would be one solution. And let's try this. So filtering, we use well, it's actually let's get lib in scope here, inherit packages lib. So then we can access lib.filter. Would also be available under built-ins.filter, but let's use lib. And so now we want to filter each of these packages in this list here of the previous build inputs. And we're going to specifically filter out this package here. We could match on the name, well, the p name here or the entire name. This feels a bit brittle in this case. Let's try if we have an alternative way of doing this. Is it here shell equals? So this is the definition. So we want to get the nm node modules here. Node modules that is defined up here with this make derivation. So we have a p name, we have version. Is there anything identifying about this derivation that how we can identify it is in node modules? This might be an option. So we could do, is there a Node.js pass through, for example? Or is there a packages file? That might work. Yes, let's do the Node.js thing.
Can you compare by identity? Like we have this shell.node modules. Can you like compare if it's exactly this derivation somehow?
That's a good point. Yeah, we should be able to do that. And so there is. So just a brief note on that. There is a quality comparison in Nix. Well, Nix REPL, let's do it like this. Actually, let's do it like this. Let's get Nix packages in scope here. So we can do hello equals packages hello. And that should be, double equals. Returns true. But the equality check isn't like fully exact. And so we could do something like this here where let's do just a / override. We could also use override address. Let's actually use override address. And let's just add a pass through. So let's say pass through dot my hello equals true. And this will still equal true. So it still counts as the same thing. And that stems from the fact that it just compares, I believe, the out path or the DRV path, or maybe both. So if we were to override the out path specifically, out path equals not correct, then it returns false. Yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't work the same as like equality comparison between attribute sets, for example. Actually wonder, just a brief experiment. What if we say we have an address and we define this to be equal to recursive equals address. So it's let's do like address equals let recursive equals inherit recursive. Let's do it like this. All right, now we have address, which contains recursive and so on to infinity. I wonder if that can compare to true. Okay, it can. So I believe it uses some cutoff there where if it compared the same thunk already, it won't do it again. Not entirely sure on the details, but
can you add throw somewhere to check if it's evaluating it?
Yeah, like we could do this, x equals throw. And that should throw, yes.
So it's not just thunks.
Right, yeah, well, it has to evaluate the thunks, but I'd imagine it could cache evaluation per evaluated thunk, something like that. But yeah, definitely for normal attribute sets, it has to compare all of the individual attributes. Whereas with derivations, as before, it only checks the outpath and something else, I believe. All right, but let's go back to this. So we want to filter out let's actually add a comment here. Sure. Filter out node modules derivation identified by Node.js pass through. Okay, let's try this out. So Nix shell here. Oh, this is I'm in the npmlock2nix. 27. All right, and it looks like it still attempts to build 2 of these. So that didn't seem to work. Well, let's try to debug this. Let's print something here. Let's just see what the filter function is called with and print the result of that. So let's do we could use buildInputs.trace. We could also use, let's do lib.debug.trace. Something I like to use is trace sec n. And I just put a really large number. Honestly, this should be improved. Trace sec, unfortunately, doesn't do the recursion I want to have here. But so we want to print a value here deeply and then return something else. And here I'm going to print, let's print actually, this is not packages, this is package. I want to print let's say, the name of the package. So package.name. Let's use an inherit as well. Inherit package name. Let's also print pass-through to see what kind of pass-throughs there are. And I think that should be good. Okay, and let's Nix shell again. And we can see some traces here. So actually one of them is, okay, yeah, this might be too many levels deep. So let's remove some levels. I only really need 2 levels, I believe, or maybe 3. Let's start with 2 here and Nix shell. Okay, now we can see nice traces. We have one of them is the Node.js. So if you go back to the npmlock2nix definition, let's keep this down here. Let's move this around a bit. Nix Hour npmlock2nix. So here, the shell, we have, well, by default, buildInputs here is empty. And so the only 2 derivations we have are this Node.js one and the node modules itself. And we can see here the Node.js one is printed first, and then the node modules one. Let's increase the recursion level here by 1 so that we can see more details here. All right, scroll back up. And we can see pass-through. Actually, we saw the pass-through before as well. But we have log file, Node.js, and packages file. And for Node.js, what is the pass-through? Oh, the pass-through is a lot of packages. So let's decrease this by 1 again so we can see all of them. All right, but yeah, pass-through, there's no Node.js in Node.js itself. So I would think this should work.
Maybe it's not in pass-through.
Yeah, we did check it like this, which I guess is not pass-through directly. But yeah, you're right. So let's not print pass-through. Let's print also this. Let's say has Node.js equals package Node.js. Like this. And by the way, quick note on Nix syntax. This looks like an identifier, but it's actually a string. So we can also do this. And sometimes this style is a bit more obvious, though for brevity, you will often see it like this.
Maybe even output package.node.js or empty set or something, or false, or null.
Yeah, let's do that if we're having trouble after this. So has Node.js true, has Node.js false. I feel like that should work. Okay, so I think our filter worked here, but it might be still a dependency that is built. So nm is used here. Oh, here it is. It's also used in the shellHook, and so that's going to be harder to replace. Right. Again, so at this point, we kind of exhausted the option of just being able to like quickly replace the nm in here. Something I would do now is to actually copy the entire implementation here, because that's at this point easier than trying to override it in some way. because the string here, we can't really override the string. Well, we could try this, but we would need access to this function, which might be internal. Let's grep for this. It's up here. It might be, actually note, npmlock2nix exposes these functions in an internal interface. So we could use that as well. I guess let's try it. So we just want to override the shellHook here. So let's copy, I guess let's copy this. We can remove this one again or comment it out. So the filter does work here. So like this. All right, now the shellHook needs to be overridden. Let's do it down here. So we're out of the buildInputs override here. Let's go into the shellHook. And so this won't work by default. We do need access. We do need the node modules here, so we can do shell.node modules. We also need the node modules mode. Where does that variable come from? It comes from up here. Yeah, so it's usually passed to the shell here. In this case, we don't pass anything. But I guess if we want to be really like pedantic about it, we would do, actually it's a bit hard to make this like without having to specify the default. Let's just assume we have the default. So it's symlink. I believe, yes. So let's assume it's symlink. We have this argument, and now this one will fail for now. Let's do Nix shell. Yeah, undefined variable, add node modules to current working directory. So let's see how this can get accessed in npmlock2nix. Now I wonder, because npmlock2nix, we have a default.nix file which exposes the API. Let's try just doing a Nix REPL into that. Actually, Nix REPL dot. It might load some things. Weird error, but let's see what it gets in here. Okay, it fetches a Nix packages. So I guess that's what's taking some time. I can see my CPU spinning up here. All right, now we have v1 and v2 in the Nix REPL. Let's do v2. We have shell in here, and we also have internal in here. And in here, if we tab complete, we can see, we can hopefully see the one. Was it?
It's the first one.
Add node modules. Oh yeah, this one. Very nice. So we can just access v2.internal, and then we can get access to the variable. So internal dot this, and then we need, what is the node? npm lock2nix.v2.internal. I'm also going to remove this comment. I don't know, can stay here. And now, Nix shell. And it still builds it twice. That's great.
The shell that you added in the shellHook, does that have the override adders actually available?
Ah, that's a good point. We didn't add it. Yeah. So this is the original node modules. Okay, let's try to fix this by having our node modules, or let's say custom node modules. Usually in Nix you would use camel case, but here it doesn't really work well. Let's just leave it at this. So I'm gonna get this one from here, put this up here. Now we have only the override here. I'm gonna replace this one with the custom node modules. All right. And down here, we also put the custom node modules. All right. I did also want to try like debugging why it wouldn't. But yeah, awesome. So it doesn't build it twice. And our build phase successfully failed, but it was changed. All right. So something we could also do here, let's maybe go one step back here and see how we could have also detected this error. So we had shell.node modules earlier. It said built twice. Okay. Now we want to figure out why this is happening. So let's trace what the tool does. So Nix shell and accesses default.nix, well, shell.nix if it exists. In our case, it doesn't exist, so it gets default.nix. What Nix does is it does a Nix instantiate on the result. So we can also replicate this here. Default.nix is the default argument, so we can just do this. Now we get the derivation back of the Nix shell. And now we want to figure out where these dependencies come from. Why do these need to be built when we try to enter the Nix shell? We can do this using Nix ydepends. That's part of the new CLI. I don't think that exists in the, it's kind of hard to do in the traditional way using Nix store dash, I believe Q. There's graph, there is also tree. It's a bit hard to do it this way though, and doesn't give you all the information. So Nix ydepends, we're going to enter, actually it won't work, never mind, because these are derivations, and derivations would have to be built to figure this out. I believe there's a tool that can still work. I think
you can specify there's derivation, don't you?
Dash derivation. Oh, is that, does it exist? Depends. Nix 3. Oh yeah, man pages. If you want the man pages for the new CLI, you need to use Nix 3 here. So ydepends. Is there an option? There isn't a derivation option, unfortunately.
I think it's in common options somewhere.
Oh, is it?
Oh, it was mentioned above.
Right above. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, nice. I kind of discredited the common options, but that's nice. So let's try it out. Derivation. Very nice. Well, it doesn't really show us a path, but it gives us a clue, and that is that the this derivation occurs in directly in the derivation of this one. So we should be able to see it when we just do, well, not ydepends, show derivation. Right, and so in here we have input DRVs. That's pretty great. Actually, JLS, do I have JLS installed? Let's try that out. JLS, and this is just nix-shell-p. JLS is a browser for JSON documents. So JLS, okay, that looks a bit better. And I believe we should also be able to grep for things this way, although strings aren't rendered that well because this one is much longer than it can actually render here. So that's not super great. But we have input sources, outputs, input DRVs. We have both one here. So both of these versions. One of them will be in the shellHook, which we can't see right now. So let's just not use JLS. But yeah, the shellHook, that will have the other one. And so we could have grepped for this in the output, I guess. So for example, the hash here, next shell derivation, and then grep or rip grep for this one. Then we would have realized, oh, it's in shellHook. I wonder why it doesn't occur here. Oh, these are output dependencies. Actually, no, this should be 8027. No, that's a different one.
No, but those are derivations and that is output.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So I guess you can see it directly, but I guess we could have seen it when we did it before. So we could have done here, these derivations will be built. Why is one of them built? We should be able to copy the path, then next show derivation, and then grab for this one. And let's add some context here. Well, honestly, this is this is not that great because derivations reorganize the internal format, so we can't directly see that it corresponds to the shell hook.
You can check out
This-
the path of a derivation.
Yeah, so here we could do, how do we get the output path? It
Path
could be
info.
show derivation. What?
You can do Nix path info and derivation.
Like this. Or is it? Oh, like that. Oh?
No. It said that is not valid is the thing that you are interested in for QA for.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's weird to me why it works this way. Path info.
Yeah, and another way would also just be to look at the derivation directly. So we could do get the derivation, and then, so this is all JSON, so we can also use JQ, and then JQ dot, it uses kind of a weird internal structure, but yeah, we could get the output path from here. Dot path. Yeah. Again, then we could have grabbed for this one in the show derivation for the shell, like this. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is one in buildInputs, not the one in shellHook. But you get the idea. It's a bit of a pain, to be honest. I believe I've also seen a tool, Nix derivations. Is this the right one? I feel like this is too old. This one might be too old. Yeah, it's 4 years old. And it apparently doesn't work. But the idea is the important thing. It should be possible to make something like this. This one looks interesting.
Maybe the why depends could output also like which field of the derivation links to this, something like that.
Yeah, that would be great. I also wonder if why depends derivation if there is an issue for this already. That might be related. Yeah, should be able to either find an issue or create one. I'd be on board with that. All right, so the end result here. Let's go back to the custom one, so it's actually fixed. Right, it's a bit of a pain. So I always say that in Nix you can override anything. It just sometimes it needs more code and it's less convenient. So in this case, we needed to copy part of the implementation here to be able to override this thing. Maybe let's also take a look at how we could improve this on the npmlock2nix side, how we can make this more overridable. And if we go to the shell here, I mean, the main problem here is really that the node modules is declared in a Latin statement here, which Latins are kind of frowned upon sometimes, especially also in Nix's modules, because you can't override them by default. And so how we can fix this here, I'd say there's this new style. We looked at this a couple times already in Nix packages, where you can define a function instead of arguments. I don't think it actually works for mkShell here. I guess we can try it out. So the idea here is that you can have final address here, which is the well, it's a fixed point. This is a fixed point function, and it allows you to get access to the final result of the attributes. And so in here, instead of getting the node modules from the Latin statement up here, we can get it from the pass-through down here. So we can do final address dot node modules dot node.js. The same thing here. Let's also refactor this a bit, otherwise it's hard to see what's going on. Right, but then we still have the pass-through itself here, which uses the let in definition. So we can move this down here instead. All right, and then extra address as well. This, I'm not sure if that needs to be overridable. Honestly, I don't think that needs to be overridable. I mean, that's what you might say, but then half a year later, someone is going to complain that it's not overridable. In this case, yes, in this case,
I think it just utters that are specified right in here.
Right,
so
so
like,
actually, it is kind of overridable. Yeah, but honestly, I don't think we actually need that. Yeah, let's just do this one for now then. Okay.
And shellHook?
Now, oh, shellHook.
NM we should replace with final address node modules.
Oh no, that should be fine here.
No, NM on the line above.
Oh, here. Yeah, thank you. Node final address dot node modules. All right. So NM isn't anywhere in here anymore. Okay. Well, it's in the build still. The build would also have to be changed like this. Now this actually won't work, I believe, but let's try it out. So let's go into. We could run tests for npmlock2nix, or we could try to use this version of npmlock2nix in our test here. Let's try this here. So instead of getting sources.npmlock2nix from here, let's just get it from /npmlock2nix. Now this is impure, but kind of these overrides tend to always be impure. Even if you use flakes, you won't really commit these random changes to repositories. But if we wanted to make this a bit more streamlined, I'd probably do it like this: npmlock2nix source. So here, by default, I'd do, well, then we need access to sources, so we'd have to put this up here. So let in sources equals this, and then sources dot npmlock2nix. And then npmlock2nix source. Then if we wanted to overwrite this, we could pass this as an argument. So let's do this. Let's do Nix shell arg npmlock2nix source, and then pass / npmlock2nix. Okay, right, now we get the error. So mkShell doesn't yet support this. Now we could also go one step further. Actually, I'm also realizing that we used an impure Nix packages in here, and npmlock2nix. So flakes would have complained, and that would have been a good thing. In here, npmlock2nix, I'm struggling a bit with the files. But yeah, actually, no, it's not impure. It uses append Nix packages, but maybe not the Nix packages we want. So let's pass this here instead. Inherit packages. Oh, never mind, actually. It uses packages.callPackage, which passes all of the arguments in here. So yeah, these defaults aren't used. Okay, that's great. So that's not needed. And now what we might try is change the Nix packages here to one that has a shell, what is it, a mkShell that supports a function in here. Another shell in here, right. This isn't supported by default. So we might try the same thing here, where we have a Nix packages source, or just let's just call this Nix packages. By default, sources.nix packages. And then instead of using sources.nix packages here, use Nix packages directly. All right, and now we can pass our own Nix packages in here. So arg Nix packages, and then let me pass my clone of Nix packages. Okay, that also still doesn't work. So now we can go in here. We can go to shell, make shell. That seems to look right. Okay, it takes an attribute set. This will be annoying to change, I have a feeling. Yeah, so the change here would be a bit more drastic. We might have to like assign something here and then get the args, and then if it's a function, then call it, otherwise don't call it, and so on. But yeah, in the end, the change here we do is final address from here, and then gonna call the function we specified. Yeah, so I make derivation, which is used underneath for all of the derivations, does support this style now in Nix packages, and that would be useful here.
But since it's a function, can't you, I mean, the mkShell is a function, can't you make overridable, like apply it, make overridable to the mkShell as a function?
Oh, yeah, that
with
actually
this
might work,
argument.
yes. Yeah, so we could do make shell and then override, well, make override, I don't think make over.
No, it's in lib, like
Okay.
lib.make overridable, mkShell, and then arguments. I think that's how it's called.
Yeah, that might work, though it introduces another level of like overrides and stuff, which might be pretty tricky to argument about. But yeah, we are out of time. But yeah, I think I'm gonna actually commit this to the repository so we can get the final solution here, which, well, yeah, it's a working state right now. So you can get this later in the Nix Hour repository right here. All right, then thanks everyone for joining, and see you again.